ad hoc building committee meeting on Tuesday. Muted. Once. Oh. Hello. Hello.
Is it the one behind you?
Joe, can you hear the feedback? Okay, perfect. Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties there.
We noticed you didn't ask us to help.
We will call to order the ad hoc building committee meeting for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. It is around 6:07, Joe? 6:07 p.m. today. First thing we'll do is do the roll call to order and then the roll call of members. We'll go through these one at a time. Councilmember Brost. Here. Councilmember Dodwell. Councilmember Edens.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer. Here. Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Nyan.
Here.
Also present today, we have City Administrator Thomas Lee, myself, Director of Planning Parks, Joe Bunich, and Director of Public Works, Rick Brown. Also, the Captain of the Police Precinct here in Wildwood, Captain James Mundell. We'll go on and move over to the third item on the agenda, which is the election of chair and vice chair. Councilor Reeds.
City Administrator Lee, I would like to invite Councilmember Ed Marshall to please chair the committee. And I believe he has a professionalism that is second to none and provides a depth of knowledge and history about the building process that has occurred in Wildwood over the years.
Okay, any other nominees, any seconds?
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Hey, do we have any other nominations? All right, we'll do a voice vote here and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. I guess, do I hand it over?
Thanks.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, in that case, the chair is Councilmember Marshall, and we'll hand it over to you.
Well, that's great, because I think what we need to do is to learn all of these, where we are. We gotta do a quick tour first and look, or
We can, if
what was your plans, I guess?
in
that
this
was-
case, we were going, that is the second under for information. We can move the agenda if that is your wish. We're just gonna go, the first thing was quotes and then tour,
That's
then
fine.
go into prioritization.
So I wanted to ask one dumb question. In the maintenance budget. So again, over the years, all the different city halls we've had and everything, is the ongoing maintenance. When we leased them, that was pretty easy. You pushed it back onto the landlord. But now we've been here 10 years. And if I'm correct, last year, we dropped about $40,000 out of the maintenance budgets.
Ongoing maintenance has been increasing, especially with the elevator outage, which came up, and then the recent HVAC issue was just 22,000 alone.
But the budget for last year is what I'm
Budget
saying.
for
The
last
budget was
year.
dropped by $40,000.
Yes, so it's above that $40,000 mark, but it was budgeted for 20,000 this year,
Was there a reason that it got dropped last year?
to 20,000 versus the
No, it dropped down below
it-
40. It went down by 20,000 from the last couple of years in maintenance.
to my understanding, there was no good reason to bring that down. I think it probably should have stayed up, just considering the size of the building and the day-to-day needs that come by.
Here's just my last dumb question.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand. When you have a building like this, you need to be doing this all along. You can't just drop it out for a year or two.
There's a good example of that too, is we had with the HVAC system, we just got hit with a $22,000 fix. And the reason for that, we had a contract in place with IFS. It's an automated system. It is a pretty high tech, and we'll show you it today. It's full, it's got this chiller, it's got the glycol solution, but we used to have we paid 3,000 more a month on the maintenance contract. But that permitted 2 annual inspections, so a biannual inspection where an individual would come out and just make sure everything was running properly. And if they were here and they didn't see anything wrong, they would just do what they could to make sure it was in best shape possible. We have seen the highest HVAC costs since we've made that change in 2022 was the first year we did the fully remote option, which we are currently doing. We look to hopefully change back to the 2 visits per year to kind of get as much as we can from it, but it does cost an extra $3,000 a year. But, and sorry to interrupt here, but we do also have to nominate.
Vice chair.
Yes, just want to remind you.
So do we have a nomination for a vice chair?
Well, without your permission, I know you haven't chaired a committee before. How would you like to be vice chair? Councilmember Nye, I'd like to nominate Councilmember.
Have a second? Councilman Farmer seconds that. All in favor? We have a small crowd here. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome.
In that case, we can move on to the public comments section.
Do we have any?
Mr. Chair, there are no attendees on Zoom.
Wow, so much for the public comment.
So, Chair,
Yes, sir.
like when this whole thing started, a lot of my thoughts were focused on some of my days were, I've done some, like business planning, and you go into a company and you analyze their strengths and you analyze their weaknesses. We are not a real estate management company. And you know, there's companies that are very heavily dependent upon real estate, but they don't manage it, such as like Sheraton Hotels. And they found out that they're not in the real estate business, they're in the hospitality business. We are not in the real estate business. I think when we do our budgets and we look at the focus, we haven't focused on this building properly. In my business in residential construction, the homeowner's always very dedicated to their property. In commercial, like Rick, you're not gonna be here at midnight repairing a leak on the roof. You're gonna call somebody. If I have a leak on my roof at midnight, I'm out there fixing it because it's my house. So there's a different perspective. We have to look at, I don't think we've been good at allocating the necessary dollars to maintaining this building, nor, and I'm a low overhead guy, I would never have gone down this path of this building. And I can give case after case, but it's not consistent with our operating style of this city. But we are where we're at, but I think there's a crossroads that we shouldn't ignore is, do we continue to own this building? Do we look at selling the property, having someone who's an expert? For example, Mr. Boone, last night we had Green Street talking, and I'm not suggesting Green Street, but if the city of Wildwood was presenting the plan to develop that property, I don't know if we would have had the same level of confidence. We are not real estate people. We need to manage a municipality. So I don't know if we go back to the business case that maybe was developed before my time as to why we invested the money in this building. And there was probably some type of I'm a numbers guy, so there was a projection, there's all these things that said this was in the best interest of the city, but this was very contrary to our operating style. And I think I actually think the items that we have, the only thing we have here that's an issue is the structural issues. The other stuff is just lack of
Maintenance.
giving the building the normal attention. We did not give this building the normal attention because we're too focused on like the budget. And this building, was it $8 million? Yeah, ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
Yep.
Ridiculous. So I think we have a crossroads. Should we own this building? Or should we're a good tenant. We'd probably pay the bill. But by and large, the only issue of what I've read on all these, on what was sent out, the only issue, even the elevator, I mean, that's relatively minor to what is the core structural issue. And Mr. Brown is an engineer. I'm a bean counter, but I just think we have that. And I think the main issue of the building is lack of attention. And I mean, it's contrary to our operating style to have put $8 million in this
Well,
building.
I don't disagree. I know one of the things that we shut down the city hall building committee and the plan in 2017. And up until that point, one issue after another issue and another issue. But the thing was obvious to me was we suddenly went from not having our own city hall to building a city hall, whether you liked it or not, we had it. But the ongoing maintenance of those things that need to be done needed to be put into a budget. I'm not saying you shouldn't sell out, but that was never really part, because we're not used to being the owner of the property. And, it was always before rollover to the owner. So I don't disagree with you. Unfortunately, at this point, we've got to figure out how to even get it to a point that somebody would be interested in that. But some of the maintenance stuff has been issues for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But because it's not a primary issue, it just we go to the next issue. And I think that's where we've got to figure out how to stop the challenges.
Well, part of the issue, I want to make sure the individuals in the city at this point. We've gone through 3 city administrators in the last.
None of them have
5
any
years.
knowledge of real estate.
And actually 4, if we count Mr. DeBrell. And all of them should have been in charge of maintaining this particular building. None of them took that onus on. And so we're going to be playing catch up for several years of diversion into other priorities, et cetera. So I think that's part of why we're where we're at today.
Yeah. I've addressed some issues with structural and it. You throw money at it, you get the proper studies, it can be correct.
Mhm.
That's what we need to do. It's not, and Rick, you're an engineer, so agree or disagree with me, but I mean, I've had situations where we've had to correct structural issues and you go out and realize it and you pay for it. We like when you sent out the memo saying, well, we have these issues, we don't have any money in the budget. What, are we a bunch of idiots?
Whose fault
We
is that?
have an $8 million building. I was gonna buy $100 million yacht, but then I found out that it costs $10 million a year to operate it.
Mhm.
So I said, no.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, you're gonna do an $8 million building, it's gonna cost money. I wasn't really gonna do the yacht, but
Yeah.
it was gonna cost.
Nice
money.
thought, though.
But it's $10 million a year. When you do something like that, it's gonna cost money. And
And those discussions have happened council after council, but you're right, when people aren't, it's not even a single line item in the budget. I mean,
No,
those are the
it should have
types of
been.
things that really get you to the point, say, how did we ever get here?
Yeah, so.
all right, I'm done.
I think that's a good point. Any other comments before I think we're gonna do a walk?
We'll go into for information.
Okay,
Yep, that was part of the public comment, but
Well, can I make just one
Yes.
comment? And I apologize profusely for my lateness today. Coming off of COVID, the brain is still lagging behind a little bit. Like it was, it's been 10 days, okay? You're okay, you're okay. Otherwise I'd have my mask on, it's okay. I am hoping that one of the goals of this committee is that we identify what needs to be done, that we included those things that are have tos for this year into the 2024 budget. We get those done and we identify what needs to be done in 2025 and 2026. And then as we're doing this, we identify ongoing maintenance requirements for the building. Then we can make an assessment as to whether we sell the building and somebody else maintains all of those things, or whether it's more cost effective for us to do it. Having been on council when we rented buildings and then you have to deal with a leaseor who does or doesn't want to do things and chooses not to follow suit on things, that's a problem too. So
We have
So-
that with every contractor Rick Brown deals with,
I know,
and that is our operating style.
Yep.
And so but to me, there's the issues we're talking about, they're not 24, they're not 25, they're immediate.
Mhm.
And if we can't afford to do it as a city, we should not own this building. Period. We shouldn't own it.
they're not gonna heal themselves.
No, but somebody who's an expert in real estate, these don't scare them. These don't scare them. I mean, when I opened up and looked at each of these bids, I was like, oh my God, you're telling me we can't do these? This is ridiculous. Those should be done. I mean, maybe not the stairs,
Yeah.
but that was $1,700, right?
That was
Oh my
4
God,
years
those are
ago.
great bids.
Mhm.
I
4
mean,
years ago or so, that was.
it was like, I mean, it's minor, but the roof, get it, anything with the roof needs to be done tomorrow. And if there's not money in the budget, find money in the budget. I'll find it. Give me 10 minutes. We'll find money in the budget. I mean,
Council.
no, you have to fix a leak in the roof, period. That has to be done.
Councilmember Edens.
I mean, like Joe, if you had a leak in your roof, would you wait a year?
Hey, I just today dropped 20 grand on a new HVAC system for my house. It was
Yeah, if you have a roof, you gotta
95
fix it.
degrees in my house. I don't have a choice.
Well,
Great to come to the meeting, huh?
Yeah,
I was
I'm
gonna
ready to
say-
spend some city money. Let's do it.
The reality is, we can pay for it, but we have to dip into savings. And that's what savings in my mind is for, is to make sure that the building literally holds together and that it's the rainy day fund for these types of things. And, you know, I think there hasn't been a political will to have that conversation before in the past, but we can do it. And we can.
Yes,
I
sir.
better be careful. They might vote me out of Ward 1, you know, that seems to be what's going on right now.
I agree with Lauren. I mean, I'm of the opinion, and I was when COVID happened and I brought up the rainy day fund then. We don't actually have a savings rainy day fund if the building is falling around us. Like,
Right.
that's just deferred maintenance that's been sitting in account for some reason, making most of this more expensive. And I mean, I think we'll see it in a minute. I was in Megan's office the other day. It's literally falling into the street. So like some of these things, I'm happy to go on the tour and do all of this stuff, but like, you know, this is just basic home ownership. I'm with Larry. I don't know that that's what we should be in the business of being in long term, but it's certainly what we're in the business of being in right now. And I mean, a lot of these are cosmetic things and, you know, simple stuff, but you know, when you're getting to ants places, you have, it's just not, you wouldn't want that in your house. So we shouldn't, I don't think the citizens of our city would appreciate that, you know, walking in and having ceilings rotting. I mean, I think there was mold in the women's bathroom for the first 2.5
Yeah,
years.
it's the
I
woman's
was like,
bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Now,
finally finished.
Yeah.
So, to our long-term staff people here and short-term staff people here, what is your opinion on all this chatter you're hearing?
I think there's quite a few problems with the building, as we'll see in the tour, but end of the day, the structural stuff, if we have an engineer come in there, we could, those quotes have been taken, and that's to repair the leaks in some instances, but to potentially repair the structural issues, this could be something where we definitely have to reach into our savings for. You know, I personally, and we'll get into the prioritization, but I'm currently thinking what we need to do is have a structural engineer come in and take a look and see if the city hall's done settling. If it's done settling, that is good to hear. If it's not, then we have a whole nother issue. On top of that, the leaks. Those two things I think are top of mind for me. But I think these two gentlemen have worked here a lot longer than I have, so I think I'll defer a little bit to their opinion too.
Well, obviously the leaks are, in my mind, probably the most critical to get addressed because it only gets worse the longer we defer that repair. So, but they're also very challenging from my perspective. And I think what we've struggled with, and yes, I am an engineer. I don't have expertise, frankly, as a structural engineer, don't have a lot of experience with buildings. It's just the way it is. So getting that expertise to help us is a challenge. We've talked to a couple of folks about getting assistance in that regard, but the leaks are just difficult to assess and pinpoint the root cause. So it seems like you basically have to spend money to figure out what the root problem is, know what the ultimate cost is. So there is that. I think there was a reluctance from our prior city administrator to do that, quite frankly. But yeah, I think you're gonna have to spend some money to really figure out what the problems are. Really identify what the repair is. You just have to get in there and start removing windows, removing drywall, and getting up on lifts and getting the right expertise where it needs to be to figure out what that cost is to repair those things. But we can do that, just recognition that we take a bit of money to do it.
It's not gonna get any cheaper.
No,
And it's not
That's
gonna
what
get
it
cheaper.
costs.
I mean, it's as much as it should.
would that be the same group that did the bathroom leakage?
Well, that's just it. No, it probably wouldn't be. we've tried to pull in an engineer with expertise with buildings and structures. Now, more recently, we've talked to a consultant, G&W Engineering, about them helping us put together a plan to address the leaks and the structural issues with the settlement. Kind of think G&W might be the way to go. First engineer we talked to seemed very knowledgeable, very helpful, but he just wasn't very responsive, frankly. So it was a little frustrating to get his attention. Once we got his attention, he was very helpful, but it didn't seem like he was very responsive to us. So I almost feel like G&W, the other firm, or even putting out a new RFP potentially would be the way to go. Just to get somebody who can show us they have demonstrated experience with these kind of issues that we're dealing with would be very helpful, in my opinion.
Could we get that within the next, that work completed within the next 2 weeks, so we have it for our budget cycle?
Probably
It's
not.
probably outside of the budget.
Okay,
Are you looking for another name? I
okay.
know a really good structural engineer.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too far
That's
away
okay.
from your
Yeah,
agenda.
I'll
Thomas,
send
but,
you a name and
um,
I'll. He's, yeah, he'd be really good. And the price is reasonable too.
Lauren?
At the Municipal League, there was a lecture at the annual conference. Councilmember Garitano attended that one. I attended a different one. However, I have the PowerPoint information and the contact information. There was a firm that helps municipalities in managing construction for new municipal buildings. So they've done a lot of area fire stations in St. Louis municipality, city halls. So they would maybe be the firm that would bring in the expertise. And so I can actually pull it up on my phone right now. And then forward that to you guys.
Joe?
This is just kind of a, because I guess I wasn't around, but who is the person on our staff that is sort of like the de facto building? Is that you, Rick?
That's, well, I think that's part of the thing we struggle with, frankly, is that the city administrator has kind of been that person in the past and has been reluctant to delegate it fully. And so, you know, I think that's the bottom line. It's been the city administrator. Now, more recently, we've hired Tim Phelan, and he's our building
Guy.
superintendent, and Tim's got some experience with building construction. He's pretty knowledgeable. He's not an engineer, and we haven't really named him that person, quite frankly, and there was some thought that maybe Tim could do that for us, but that's probably asking a bit much for Tim, I think.
I mean, I've never, from a professional sense, I've never been in a building of this size that doesn't have a person that, like, they're not an engineer, they're just a guy that like knows how to jiggle the vent the right way so that it works, but then also if there's something wrong, they're kind of the person that
There's the
Passes that
liaison
along
to
to
the
somebody else.
structural engineers and the contractors
I think
and
that's how we envision Tim to operate, frankly.
Okay.
And so day by day, I think, yeah, he can do a lot of those things, but there wasn't a lot of maybe enough trust to really delegate it fully to him, I guess.
well, I mean,
in the past.
I'm of the opinion, I've talked to our city administrator a lot about this, we, for some reason, went into a mode of just cutting all maintenance of seemingly most things that had to do with the building, whether it's the phone system or the computers or whatever. And I don't know, I don't feel like we were in like the financial straits that seemed like it would necessitate a decision to just cut all of that stuff across the board. So, I mean, I think as we go into this budget thing, we need to look several budgets back and just figure out what it is, because like most of this stuff to me, I mean, even at $1,700 for the stairs, whatever, that's fine. The stairs are a little shaky when you walk on them. I'd be more concerned about that, but
Just be shiny now.
yeah, they can be nice looking when we fall, I guess. But I just think that, most of these things are relatively quick, relatively inexpensive fixes, but if we don't fix them, they just get progressively more expensive, like by the month, not even year over year. And I think we have to get into a place of, you know, I'm all for the balanced budget. I know that's a very important thing in the city. But if we have money that we can tap in to fix these things, and then we can look to rebalance the budget if we're selling the building or doing whatever we want. But this idea of just letting all of these things fester, and it was really odd to me, you weren't here, Tom, for this, but like that women's bathroom thing that literally seemed like it took 3 years to fix.
Oh, it was 4 or 5 years.
So I don't know, I mean, I just don't know. I don't want to task either of you guys with this job because you have plenty of other stuff to do with the city. But we need, like, this needs to be somebody's job to figure out what we need to do. And then as a group, we just need to convince enough of our fellow council members to be like, we invested $8 million in this 10 years ago. I mean, do we have any idea how much we paid on maintenance for this? I guarantee it's nowhere close to the right amount of money.
No,
Probably not.
Correct.
So any amount of money that, to me, the difference in that amount of money, if it is sitting in a bank account, it shouldn't be.
well,
there.
and we should have been putting it in an account 10 years ago.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, now we're at the point like, oh my goodness, it's 10 years old. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
but
we should have been
that shouldn't be
putting-
a surprise.
We should have been putting 100,000 a year.
And quite honestly, just a little bit of the history. So 2017 was when finally then, and I believe this is correct, that's when Larry McGowan and Sue went back in and started backing into all of the construction. This was constructed by committee,
Mhm.
which was a big problem to start with. And then they started going back in trying to figure out who didn't do what. So every component got questioned.
Yeah.
And every component had the vendor come back in to try to, and at the end of that, they were able to turn it over at the end of 2017 and said, close the city hall fund and we'll take it over. But nobody went in and said, here's the maintenance, we should have
Nobody created a maintenance fund.
2% of the cost or whatever every year put into that, and then look at, what's a 5-year upgrade, 10-year. But that it's just so easy in our budget because, and as Larry said, it's not something that we're budgeting as we should. I mean, it's quite a facility, but it needs to have its own separate, it shouldn't be buried in the lines of maintenance under admin. Just not a good place to put it, so.
Well, and the other thing too is that we have a budget, but when you have an issue, the budget is secondary to correcting the issue.
Mhm.
And we have issues that if we say, well, and again, I'm a CPA and I love numbers. If we have an issue, I don't give a darn about the damn budget. You fix it.
Mhm.
We have issues. I don't care about the budget. We fix them.
And I want to make sure we fix them correctly. We don't
Yeah.
Band-Aid them. Because I feel like a lot of things, not just in this,
Yeah.
we kind of go, okay, this is good enough. Let's look at us a couple of years. And then we're just throwing good money after bad. It's like, let's figure out, get the experts in, figure out really what it is, do it the right way, even if it's more money up front, and then hope,
I don't think there's any better place to spend our excess budget than on maintaining something.
I don't
with
care
this
if we have an
budget.
excess budget. And actually, Joe, I don't agree. We haven't had a balanced budget. We have not had a balanced.
Well, that's what I mean, like,
We don't.
it's a balanced budget, it's not a
We don't
real
have
thing.
balanced
It's not a
budget.
real
It's a-
thing.
We say it's balanced, but it's not.
No, I know. That's, I'm with you on this, it's
Yeah.
definitely.
That's a game.
Okay, so I think I'm just gonna rein it back in a little bit. So the tour is gonna tell us a lot, because the question that's in my mind is, and we will know this after engineering reports, is this fixable or is this a tear down? And in terms of future planning, I mean, that's a legitimate question. Are we throwing good money after bad?
It's not a tear down.
And then my next question is this a facility that we can physically expand on? Because this is in many ways undersized and you need
No,
good
No,
structural.
you will never expand this building. No, we should sell the darn thing and move back to
I
where we
still
were.
have the floor.
I am
please.
low overhead. I'm sorry.
We got your.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
Deep
gosh.
breath. Okay,
I'm
so
gonna say, what do you think about that yet?
what I would like after the tour and after our discussion today and for the next meeting is I really want staff to come up with a list of, what are our needs? So I'm not talking about, the list of fixes. When I say needs, like, did anybody think that when we put a police department in here, that that's a critical service and that building section needed to be engineered perhaps differently to withstand severe weather, that there needed to be a backup electrical system? Because you're already having electrical issues and installation, and it's one thing if it's this side of the building. It's another thing if it's the side of the building where the police department and essential services are dispatching out. So when I say what our needs are, I'm talking about in terms of public safety, right? Human health, because those are investments that need to be tackled at the same time if our needs are not met in addition to repairs. Because I don't know that when we built this building, if anybody asked questions like that about, does this infrastructure meet our needs or the needs of the public?
Okay, Tom, when you have more than 4 people in your office, we'll talk about expansion.
When I was talking about expansion,
No, we'll
I'm
put
talking
20
about.
people in this room and we'll put in a concrete barrier there. No, no, no. no.
You actually would have loved to go to City Hall.
It's like, you know what? You know what? No,
That doesn't,
I am definitely, I am the other end of spending money. I am low overhead. I was in banking for years, but I don't believe in debt. I don't believe in debt.
And I
And
understand that.
all that stuff, forget it. When there's 4 people in your office, maybe we'll talk about expanding.
Okay, but
But that's only if you don't get along. You might get along fine. No.
So there's a lot of studies. We
Chairs,
went
all
through
you
that.
need.
We fought over a year for the emergency generator. I mean, all of this stuff has been a long, long story.
so
And
what I'm talking about when I say undersized is we've had times where we're at fire code capacity for the public in meetings. And we've had times where
Outsource it.
all of our rooms are full and we've had the need for other community groups that would like to rent rooms. And then we
Yeah.
talk about, still have the floor, Larry. I'm trying not to get irritated here. I know it's not personal, but it feels a little personal. So just take a deep breath.
No, you only want to spend money. I don't want to spend money.
Okay. No Christmas cookies for you.
Okay.
But,
Not personal.
yeah.
Like
I
I
think you
do.
too.
We go back to the beginning.
We sure do. Well, we know we don't, because I had Katie go back. to
Other
you.
than the fact you got rid of Remy, I really like
I
it.
don't know, right? Well, but anyway, so, but if we have talked about the need to increase staff in the future, and those staff members do have to go somewhere. We're already doing storage offsites for documents, but I really want a list for the next meeting of what our critical needs are and whether or not those needs are met, not just a list of repairs. Because this goes into long-term budgeting, right? Do we need more money for storage offsite? Do we need safer infrastructure and backup? Does the police department have the adequate redundancy it needs in systems and hard infrastructure and otherwise? That if the event that this building fails, they can still operate? If not, I want that budgeted.
You can, I know it.
I would hope they already have
You
that
already have
answer.
that. And I think that is what we've embedded in Wildwood is there is redundancy.
That's why we contract out
Yeah.
to them because of the redundancy that they
Yeah.
have. So I'm not so worried about the police.
So-
And those studies were done, and I know that we have those, that we can back and pull those based on the type of growth. So this was built out for several years in advance. It just, I don't think we did a good job of planning a maintenance plan on how to take care of a building once it became ours instead of the landlord, so. So do you want to walk through these ones you have before we go, so you can tell us if there's any duplication in them?
In that case,
Clean Pro one first?
yeah, if you don't mind,
Sure.
if we can move to the the discussion items. We were closing out the public comment.
Okay. We're in there now.
Okay. Could we move on to the discussion items?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the repair quotes on file, we had the quote from Clean Pro, which was $3,187. That is to just power wash the front side of the roof. If you, and we'll go take a look at that, but if you look outside and if you're even back on 100, and I hate this getting a little dark, but if you're back from 100, you can actually tell that the roof has some discoloration. We've been told by Clean Pro that could come off just with a power wash. So that's what that is. It's not like fixing the roof. It's literally an aesthetic. We've noticed from Highway 100, it doesn't look great. So that was one item. The next was the little bit more miscellaneous, is from 2018, but we wanted to include what we had on file. The Champion Floor Company, the stair refinishing. There was a need, I guess, back then. The stairs weren't looking to tip top, so we wanted to get that done. The G&W Engineering quote here is for them to come in and check out the structural makeup, but also more importantly, identify where these leaks are coming from and identify a plan for plugging the 3 leaks that we've been able to note from to date. So that is, I think, one of the more important ones there. And then there's another quote here from KJS Remodeling. This is specifically tailored to fix the 3 leaks that are currently, we currently see, but this also, something important in that quote to note is that if you go in there, it says what they think. You know, once they start taking off paneling, taking out windows, you never know what they're gonna find, and there's definitely an open-ended piece to that contract where it says, once we have this, the guts open, there could be a need for more money going towards it. So that, just keeping that in mind, 85 was like the base to fix those 3 leaks if everything goes to plan. The next one was Restoration 1, which was for an HVAC cleaning. This was more so just putting in some kind of coat to reduce the mold. There is no mold here. We did a mold test back in February, March. We have, you know, the same as if you're outside. There's no concerns on breathing in toxins or anything like that. But that being said, there is outside, mold does congregate towards the HVAC system because of condensation. That being said, when you're pulling air in, every now and then you can pull some of those particles in. We're at a completely safe level with air quality. That being said, it's just a preventative measure. The last one here was from Stat Inc., which was just the elevator leak, which we will point out on the tour as a problem issue. And right now, and I know exactly where the leak's coming from when you actually get up above the elevator, you can see where it's coming in. It's not above the controller drive, thank goodness. That's where, you know, the guts are of the actual elevator. It's actually on the back end, so more so towards the to the north there. Where it is leaking in, and if that was over an electrical component of the actual elevator, we would probably be running into any more issues with the elevator. So that's a very critical one, along with the kitchen, west side kitchen, and then the downstairs police department leak. Those 3 are critical ones. We'll definitely be showing those on the tour. The department's available to answer any questions, and if the Director of Public Works or Director of Planning want to add anything on those quotes, more than happy to listen.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Maybe a little off topic. I'm just thinking about what we've got coming up. So I don't disagree, Larry, that, you know, at the end of the day, probably not having this building is the way we should be going. But until we do that, do we need to put something in place that allots whatever the appropriate amount of annual maintenance is into some type of ordinance or something, so that that is something that we just don't, it's not a debate every year whether we're going to perform maintenance on a building we own or not? I mean, I don't know. I would think that we could come up with a number. I mean, it doesn't have to be some insane amount of money, but I think we should put something in there, because as I remind people a lot, like, I feel like our current council are very sensible people and we like to do the right thing, but we're not all going to be here all the time. And clearly this problem has landed in our laps, so it's up to us to kind of solve it currently, but then moving forward wouldn't be a bad thing either. I
Do you have some sense of how much?
I mean, I would, I'm trying to think, how you would do it on a house. I mean, it's,
Well, Joe, if I can jump in.
Yeah.
Did you have the 20 grand in your budget?
that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't, so I'm not saying,
Why do we need to have it in our budget?
no, what I'm saying is like,
No, do we need to have it in our budget?
what I mean is
Yes.
maintenance money,
A
yes.
Portion of
Maintenance.
long-term maintenance,
no,
not
but yeah,
emergency repair,
But
just
long-term,
maintenance.
short-term, stuff happens.
Yeah,
Like, we have a $250,000 bill. Oh, gosh, it's not in the budget, so.
no,
I
I,
didn't
no,
Everybody
those things,
I mean,
those
it's
things
like-
need to get fixed right away.
Funds.
But if I'm looking at, like, if I'm thinking about it for my house and like I had to, some of these guys, I had a water thing, I peeled off some siding, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a lot bigger than I wanted it to be. Thankfully it wasn't, then my air conditioner died, so it got me anyways, the house. But like 3 years down the road in my planning budget, I'm like, okay, I either need to paint my house or I need to put siding on, so I'm planning that in advance. Now, if my air conditioner dies, that might mean my siding gets pushed another couple years or whatever it may be.
So known expense.
But like having, I think currently
What's it
it's
cost
just like whatever
clean the
we
carpet?
deem to put in there is what we put in for maintenance.
What's
That's
it cost
insane to me.
Paint.
But
the walls?
I'll just argue that we don't have the expertise in-house to even know what that is.
So that's what I'm saying, because we
So-
have this coming up, do we need to engage somebody that can tell us, hey, an appropriate amount of maintenance for a
Or
building?
do we just make sure that when an issue comes up, we fix it?
Yeah,
We
I'm-
have issues here that we're just like are going, it's a, oh gosh, like, and Tom, you said this in your thing. Well, it's not in the budget.
I don't care.
Well,
No, I'm ready to, I don't even have to go on the
What
tour. I've
the-
seen it.
Then it
Let's
needs to
approve
be
all
in
this
the
stuff.
budget.
Yeah.
And it's like we're operating like we're poor.
I just don't think we should drop back to what's happened without anticipating going forward. If you know you have heating and air conditioning work that has to be done, if we know carpet has to be done in 10 years, those things, we shouldn't just be shocked when they happen.
No,
But the stuff that's the roof leaking needs to be done now regardless if you have the money for it. So I think part of it is just getting that stuff that is critical, get it done, and then look down. But I think you could put, and certainly we could put back the 40,000 was taken out last year.
yeah, I mean, some of that stuff
Whatever that
is
is.
really
See,
crazy.
See, I just think that's a. I had a problem with my well this year. It wasn't in the budget. So do I not do it?
No, let me back
I
up.
mean,
All I'm saying is a guideline.
We had 40, so we put it back. No, if you have an issue, you fix it.
Don't disagree.
Funds.
Yeah, but I think my worry is, we're gonna do that, I believe,
Next council.
but the next
will.
people may not.
Well, but we can't worry
Is-
about that.
As part of an overall budget for the city, these gentlemen know how much they have to allot to maintain the parks. They put a budget together for that and for the roads. They've identified this amount for each of those entities. We should have the same kind of dollar amount associated with ongoing maintenance for City Hall. This is what we as a city need to budget,
So not an emergency fund.
not
like-
an emergency
Like the
fund.
carpet right here, like,
But when
okay,
something
that's
happens,
coming
you
up.
still fix
Don't have to do that.
Today is not.
But
No, no,
someday
no.
that's.
Yeah.
This is a,
Well, that's what we say.
this is a basic, like, I mean, the carpet's gross, so like
Yeah,
this
I mean-
the carpet in this building should be replaced. Based on what I've done previously, it's gonna cost 50 grand to fix all the
Mhm.
carpet in here easily.
Mhm.
With tile squares that can be replaced when something gets broken. That's not something that like,
It's an emergency, but.
well, I mean, I think it kind of is an
No, but I
emergency
mean,
at
I'm
this
saying
point.
it could
Since
be,
it's
that
been-
could be part of the budget every year. This year, we're gonna do carpet and we're gonna do it in 10 more years. We're gonna do this and that.
Yeah.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
I think we all.
If we're gonna go outside, we should go now.
Yes.
We're gonna need somebody to get up there like with a flashlight.
Yeah.
And
uh-huh.
I would.
I brought a 40-foot ladder.
Let's do it.
And just send,
For you.
Larry, just send us a picture of what that leak looks like.
Well, I'll go up there. It's the only way you know.
I think we should take pictures though and put it in the memo for the public.
Yeah.
Staff would be able to-
Yeah.
It's always easy to get on a roof. It's getting off the roof that's a challenge.
You're getting off
Okay, who brought the beer?
Yeah, really.
Pizza and wings and beer, boys and girls.
I'd like to.
I feel better about my house.
Everyone should feel great about their home as long as there's no 3 significant leaks in there.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Oh, not required.
we did have a leak problem.
Always some checks, right?
So Mr. Lee, total square footage.
It should be around 18,000 based off, around 18,000 this last time we checked. For the totality of all the floors. So in this
Lot of building.
case, yeah, a lot of building. And something we did check out, what I was concerned about if we discuss in the long term, if it's viable for the city to own and operate a building. One thing we had to check into is this land was gifted to us by Mr. Cohn. Luckily, he did not attach to the deed any restrictions on who could own it, so it could be theoretically sold. That being said, that's a pretty big decision, so obviously,
Wonder if he would like to buy it back and use it to us.
well, he gave it to us for $1. I don't know if he's gonna
And
buy
then
it.
we gave him the street.
Yeah, that's true. We did give him the street.
This used just to be a farm.
Yeah.
We got a nice, he was able to develop.
Okay, so what do we need next from the committee?
So in this case, this
Priority
concludes the tour, but could we move to ready for action?
Yep.
So moving to ready for action, the prioritization of the Wildwood Municipal Building projects. The only thing I wanted to bring up here, at first I had, in my mind, I have some clear and concise things that I'd like to do to take a step forward ASAP. That being said, in this case, is there something, do we need to have the bigger discussion? Because the one thing I would hate to have happen is if we pool a bunch of money in our building to bring it up 50% of where we want it to be, and then we end up selling it. And then the person would have bought it anyways, and we don't get that money back. Because, some fixes, they don't generate the same amount of money you put into them. So that's, if we're gonna have that discussion, I think it's important to have, at the front. And then if we would
I
like,
think the number one thing we have to do is assess the structural.
yes,
All the cosmetic stuff we're seeing, we gotta get the structure. And I also think that whether or not we sell the building or not, we should maintain it as the owner.
Mhm.
Whether it's us or somebody else,
Yeah.
you should, so. I don't think we're, again, what you're trying to say is, do we want to try to save $50,000 on our $8 million investment? No. I mean, we've wasted. But I would say one is we really need to arrive at a structural analysis of the building as to what needs to be done, because I think that's the root of the problem.
And I hate to even do some of these things before we've done that, because even power washing, what if part of the roof is leaking and needs to be replaced? Now we've power washed the whole roof. Why did we do that?
Mhm.
Or there's some structural and we want to take these white, whatever you
Things
want to call it,
awnings or-
off, and now we've power washed them or painted them or whatever, and now it needs to be determined that they need to come off. So I feel like I don't want to waste money doing things that then get torn down or ripped apart in the process.
I agree with you there. In this case,
I know that we've got residents that are coming through here with a clipboard, looking at all of these things in the same level of detail that we are necessarily. We're in this building more often. I haven't heard from a resident from Ward 4, but so we may not be on quite the, got to get it done
I
before
just think
winter
that we need to
comes.
be aware that it's not, it shouldn't be an option for us. We need to get it up to where it needs to be. And, I know we had this newfound money, and quite honestly, I cannot believe the mayor made a comment about giving it back to the trash haulers after we told him how we had no say on the trash haulers to start with. I mean, that was embarrassment, in my opinion, but needless to say, I think we should put the priorities out and then start working on what that range of costs should be. And it shouldn't be about the budget. We should fix that before we ever get into the budget conversations. So I would hope that we could at least give enough direction that the next council meeting, we can bring it up to say, this is what we're going to do to fix the building that we have
Mhm.
without being a budget conversation. It's, we have to fix this
Yeah,
and
it's
we have
just
to do it in
an
that right
expense
order.
we need to.
And then, some of those things, I think the architectural thing is certainly a structural issue. But then the same thing with, before it gets worse, is that tower out there. If one of those plates of glass fall out of there
Mhm.
and happen to hit somebody, that's pretty embarrassing. And so,
In the legal suit that'll.
exactly. So I mean, now that, in that particular case, but I think it's structural, you need somebody to look at it as well.
Those I want to just be removed until we figure out what to do with them. In other words, could somebody come and just take the glass out? Until, well, yeah, you'd have to board it up. I mean, I didn't know what,
Yeah, I
if
don't,
it was open aired, what it goes to. I don't know.
there's,
Goes
there's
to
an
the top
LED
of the air
light.
conditioner
Yeah,
or the elevator, excuse me.
there's a hatch there, but I don't know for, I can ask, but I don't know for sure if we take that glass out, like you were saying, it might need to be boarded up.
It 100% would have to be.
Yeah, because that's,
Sawzall.
Right.
Yeah, just take
Go
the
to
whole
Home
thing
Depot, get-
down. Mhm.
so
50 bucks for the
in
glass.
that case, though, tonight, the department is requesting a motion to move forward with the structural engineer to come in and do a complete analysis of the leakage issues we have here at City Hall, but also do an analysis of the structural problems that we have going this side of the wall coming in, and potentially water distribution as well. So a structural engineer would need to come in and do that. But that being said, when you get into this water level, I mean, we could maybe find a contractor or engineer that knows how to do, has both in their in the same house. But when you start looking at the water quality basins, we're talking about a geotechnical engineer. So those are two different hats, just like Rick is more of a, roadway improvement guy. Same goes with these individuals that are structural, geotechnical, and there's a million different types of engineers. So that's something that we might have to cross that bridge. That being said, I think the structure is key here in identifying where the leaks are coming from. And if we need to add in a geotechnical engineer, we can do that if it's determined that we have to.
Is, Lauren?
Yes, and I would like to say this, the chair and vice chair is, this has been kicked down the road for so long and government moves very slow and council's now meeting once a month. So I would just want to float this out there that as soon as, if it's gonna take another month for you to come back with recommendations, and then we approve it, and then it goes to council the next month, and then we're already out in January before we even have boots on the ground assessing. I would rather, if we need extra meetings as a committee, we have extra meetings as a committee. If it takes 3 the first month, I'm okay with that. Maybe I can't attend all of them in person. But I do not want to slow this down with like action and discussion barely happening 1 month at a time and then going to council 1 month at a time. So if you have stuff ready to go, please let the chairs know and let the chair send a request for a meeting and we'll figure it out.
Well, in this case too, thank you, Councilor Edens. In this case too, this is really the meeting that we had to have in person. Going
Right.
forward, I mean, we'll be reviewing more so the proposals or the results, which can be done via Zoom. So it's not something that everyone will have to be here in person if we do have to have.
Okay.
So before we make a motion, what's a realistic time frame to actually get a couple structural engineers that you think can turn it around?
Well, that being said, so two items here, if we would just say, hey, you know what, GNW's proposal looked good, let's bring them in. That could be done relatively quickly. If we want to go out and do an RFP for this, then we're talking 6 weeks minimum to give time for the engineers to provide their proposal. And then from there, you have to bring that back to this committee. There's a good argument to bring it, then it would need to go to admin PW, and then it would need to go to council, which does create the
What's the
couple.
cost from
Why does it have to
GNW?
go to admin?
GNW is under 10,000 of the purchasing power of the city administrator. It is 9,600.
Yeah.
It is at $9,750.
Did everybody look at the GNW one? Do you think they're
Go.
good? I mean, is that,
Just do that.
You've known GNW a little bit more than I do, so.
You said you thought they would.
Well, we did meet with them and they were interested in helping us out. It sounded like this was up their alley in terms of their capabilities and qualities.
Anybody need it?
yeah, if you have another. Thanks. So
Their proposal is more geared towards assessing the way I recall it was more geared towards assessing the leakage issues that we're experiencing primarily. So I don't know that it's going to get into the building settlement issues.
I kind of thought it was two different ones. I thought this was more the leakage issue and not the structural one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the structural settlement issues, we had talked at some point to a couple of geotechnical engineering firms, SCI, and then I forget the other one. And had gotten proposals from them to start with basically strain gauges that we placed throughout the building, monitor the settlement issues to see if it was getting worse or not. And we could resurrect those proposals too. They were all under the $10,000 mark that could be approved by the city administrator. That could be moved forward relatively easily, I think, if we wanted to do that. They're probably a good year old, frankly, so they would need,
Yes, ma'am.
The firm that I mentioned, I looked them up on the Missouri Municipal League website, and they're the ones that did the presentation at the convention. They're called GEMA, J-E-M-A. I just forwarded it to you, Tom, but it's John Mueller and Matt Sutherland that did the conference. So they would be the ones that would manage the contractors and their architects, I guess, redesign buildings for municipalities specifically.
Definitely reach out. So I'm just gonna throw this out as a topic, I guess, to maybe help these guys move a little faster. There, as we've said, there's some things I think that need to get done much sooner than our current process is going to allow for. So I'm wondering if we want to maybe advise Tom that if there's something like these engineers that need to put stress monitors on that I assume have to be there for some period of time. If that falls underneath a threshold, at least for myself, I would be fine with you saying, this is something that needs to be done. And then in 90 days, when they come back and say, hey, guys, this is a $500,000 repair or whatever it is, that's a conversation that we can have. But I think if we are like slowly taking every step that is necessary to get this done, we're not ever going to address any of these things in any normal amount of time. And by the time we do address them, it's going to be like this 5-year-old estimate to clean the stairs. Like there's not going to be any point with what we had. So I guess maybe just taking everybody's temperature here that like for myself, I'm okay. I don't believe these guys are going to be just frivolously throwing money down the drain to get the information that's necessary for us. But, you know, I don't know that we need to approve every single increment of this stuff that will take months. I mean, unless it's via email.
And I think we're fair to come up with a recommendation from a priority standpoint. They can get started on it, and if it falls under the category, then that's what we report to the council.
Right.
I have no problem calling the mayor and say, hey, this is what we're moving forward on. And I've not heard anything from him about not doing it. If anything, I think he kind of agrees that these things need to be done, or he wouldn't have put the committee together to do that. So if those two items are the two biggies, and my question was to Larry, a structural person, do you know somebody that you think would be a good one?
Yeah, and again, from a practical standpoint, if I look at this, the G&W, which I don't think is the end all, but it may be worth $10,000, or if it's something, Tom, that you can execute. Information is going to help us.
Exactly.
This will provide information. I worked with the guy for a long time. He's done million square, he's redesigned Marvin Windows facilities all over the country for earthquake preparedness. This would be a hobby for him. So, he's a good engineer. He's in Watwell. He might be in Chesterfield.
Have to get a
I don't
work
even know
visa.
if he's interested, but he would be very good at this. But we need a structural engineer, because this is not the answer here. It might be a good investment of money, but it's not the answer. I've used him for years, and he's good and reasonable. It's a small firm.
Katie?
Might I make a motion that we have the city take the recommendations from members that have offered structural engineering firms to them and go out and get a bid from them to do a structural review of the building. reporting back and having that completed sometime in November of this year, that we have another organization that the city feels is qualified doing a geotechnical review of the water features on the outside of the building that are causing the problems, and what we would have to do if we were to keep those water features in place, and what we would have to do to remove them, say, remove them off the roof of the area in the police department, that kind of thing. And then from a housekeeping perspective, I see no reason why the city can't enter a contract with a company immediately under the direction of the city administrator with getting the stairs cleaned and painted and either refinished or redone, whatever. Getting the light tower removed from the top of the column there so that we reduce that water leak today versus continuing having it. And those are things that can be done now. And then as we walk through the structural engineering process, we can see, okay, what else are we going to have to deal with down the road? But we can at least take care of these somewhat simple things that I think are more resident facing and staff facing that may at least look towards some progress.
I would just say is that on any of the geotechnical thing, if the structural engineer we engage, they should be able to give an opinion.
If they can do that, then that's
Yeah,
fine too.
if they can't, we don't want them,
Okay.
because if that's causing a foundation issue,
Mhm.
that engineer should be able to assess that.
Okay.
And I agree with everything else you said. Don't talk to me anymore about stairs. $1,700, I don't want to hear it.
Other than it's wet paint.
We've already spent too much money on it. I mean, 1,700, forget it. Just do it. You know,
Just do
do
it,
that
yeah.
stuff.
You don't need to ask us.
Now, maybe whack off the light tower, you know, you might.
I'd like
wanna
to,
mention-
I'd like to bet you that 2018 1700 is not going to be
Yeah.
1700. But they need to be done. I totally agree.
I mean, I
It's in
actually,
his
a lot of
purview
those
to do.
bids were so much less.
So how about, I know you want.
No, I was.
So you
gonna say
made a
what you just
motion,
said
I
about-
amended it, I guess.
Let's make that, should we do it in individual motions
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
instead of lumping them all together? I mean,
I was just trying to make it easy.
no, well, and stick with that same thought, but I think we put them out individually, then it makes it a lot easier for them
Okay.
to decide what they're gonna do.
Number one, we get a structural engineer with geotechnical capabilities as well to review the entire facility.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Chair.
any other discussion on that? Is that clear enough, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, just to go right back there, bring on a structural engineer to, with geotechnical expertise as well to review the entire facility.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passed. Number two,
Pardon me?
your second.
Number two, housekeeping. Get the stairs cleaned and painted, get the light tower fixed,
Well,
do it.
we maybe amended a little bit that just says, if there's building maintenance
Mhm.
issues that are less than $10,000,
Do them.
we
Do
want
them.
to encourage the city administrators to take action.
I like that
correctly.
text better.
Yeah, I like that text.
I think that's great. And I think the other thing, we don't want to get two different projects stepping on each other either.
Exactly.
So,
And overlapping on
Yeah,
what they'll
if
do.
it's gonna, and that's something I can say tonight, if it's gonna impact the, like the spraying down of the roof. Something like that versus, refinishing the stairs or, putting a plexiglass over the police's flooring over there. If it's not gonna impact the bigger scope projects that we're gonna be attacking, then I think those would be appropriate to move forward with. If it's gonna have any overlap or we even think it's gonna have overlap, then maybe put those.
So like on the G and W, wait on the leak part till the structural's done.
Oh,
in
yeah.
case
Oh,
there's
yeah.
overlap or.
Well, I don't think we should wanna wait, but I think, at the end of the day, if we don't know where that leak's at.
I mean, I don't know,
What
that's
did
what
you
I'm
say?
asking.
I didn't hear you.
Find out where the leak is and propose a method of repair for the leak. So I think that's really critical. that
So
we
sep-
move forward with that.
Be totally separate from what the structural would be looking
The
at.
structural, the way I look at the structural is it all relates to the foundation and is the
Right.
foundation settling or not? That really is more of a geotechnical engineer and that's their expertise, not essentially a structural. We did talk to the structural engineer that was involved with the project early on. He toured the building with us and looked at the settlement issues and that was his recommendation. Was that we needed to analyze the settlement issues that are occurring and get some data to look at to determine if there's a problem or not. We just don't really know to the degree that it's settling. Is it a problem that we need to be spending a lot of money on or just living?
Well, then I'll amend my motion and I'll say that we need to obtain the expertise of a geotechnical engineer to assess settling problems with the building. Based on the outcome of that, then we obtain a structural engineer to look at how we repair those items that need repairing once we've identified any potential root causes.
Let's stick with the structural engineer.
Okay,
We passed that motion, right?
okay, okay.
And the structural engineer will do the other
Well,
stuff.
I think as we engage with it, we gotta make sure.
He was asking about wanting to have a specific geotechnical engineer involved as well.
Maybe we could, how about, we didn't take a vote on the first motion, but maybe we do something like this and
Yeah,
I,
we did.
Yeah, we did.
did?
We passed it.
so obviously the first one, structural engineer with a geotechnical experience will review the entire facility and provide a comprehensive report of what to do next. The second item being, this could be the second motion, to encourage the city administrator to move forward with smaller improvements or projects under 10,000, as long as they won't affect the overall long-term projects, i.e. the leak or the foundational issues. So that's a second motion. And then
Maybe third motion. I mean, there's no harm in seeking out.
will the third motion be something like, and maybe we talk, this is a discussion, but if needed, move forward with a geotechnical expert if we run into that issue.
Do we even want to put, like, couldn't we just say the
Necessary
necessary expert?
Third,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not labeling.
I
it. Well,
think that
that,
covers everything.
yeah, I think so too.
So that goes back to your motion, Katie.
then let's adjust that emotion the way we just
I
said.
mean, then if there's any gap.
The necessary engineers to determine where we have structural and
Deficiencies, yeah.
deficiencies in the building itself.
But Rick, you're saying at the same time, you think we should be doing something like this
For
that
the roof.
focuses just on the leaks, do the structural and the leaks, because they're talking about, ripping all the, what do we call that on the roof, all the greenery off and really looking at that. I don't know that that would be something the structural engineer would be looking at. I don't know. I'm just
I
saying.
mean, this is $10,000.
The G and W is less than $10,000.
So,
I think
I
it's a
would
good start.
just say, Mr. Lee, make the call.
Mhm.
That's in that number. If there's something wrong, we're all gonna beat you up. So, but
We're gonna
no,
put you in a
it's-
choice
it's like-
room.
We'll be putting a new addition on the tower out there.
Actually, we're not replacing the window, we just push people out.
You get a clubhouse up there over the ceiling.
Yeah.
That'd be
Putting in
good.
a plank.
Mhm.
But, I think many times foundation issues is because of drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. That's why I'm
it's.
torn between which way to do
And
it.
then I don't even know soil reports on if we have that data back when the building. I mean, there should have been a soil engineer.
We treated ourselves like we treat any other developers, so there's a geotechnical. Phase one assessment, all those things.
And then what's the general history of the
Control.
soil in this area?
Wasn't very good.
Very good for building or very good for?
Plastic.
Yeah, plasticky.
Oh, there is plastic?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
A lot.
I mean, they'll typically remove it and compact it with suitable materials where they've got load bearing foundations, and I would expect that was done here, but I don't
So,
know if any of us know that for
The
sure.
neighboring communities here have had plastic soil?
Yes.
My recollection is we had a worse situation than, let's say, the theater or the hotel?
Well, plastic soil is a big problem.
And it was because they had to get special equipment to come in and do the grinding. I just remember those meetings where they said that, well, you don't understand, you can't just dig it out. It was, they had to do a process almost like a mining piece of equipment to cut it out. And it wasn't, you're right, the hotel didn't have the same problem or the theater, but this fine piece of property is another $700,000 or $800,000.
I had one home that had plastic soil and, I mean, it was, the excavation was just night and day because of that, so. I didn't know we had, I never have had it out where we're at.
It's interesting that it was in just this one
So
section.
plastic soil is a problem.
Acreage.
If it's down there, I don't know how the heck you correct
We can
that.
certainly find the geotechnical report. If you'd like to see like the executive summary or something, we can send it to you.
It was a cost factor. I remember going back saying,
Well, I think it
we
would
found
be
a
helpful.
big problem here.
I think it would be helpful to have that prepared to give to the engineer that we bring on board. He's going to want to know what kind of work was done as we were making this building. And so let's collect that in the next week or two so that we have it to give to whoever gets hired ASAP. And
So we need to back up. We need a second on our second motion.
Yep.
Katie made the first, Joe gave us the second. And this was the one for to have the city administrator take care of those items under the $10,000 that just need to be done.
just need to be done.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who seconded that?
I did.
And then,
Joe.
and Ms. Dowd.
Katie made the first,
That's for both one
Joe
and,
second. And on the first motion,
it was Katie and then Joe again, Mr. Farmer.
Can I ask just a question? So that $10,000, was that in place in 1995? When was that added by ordinance roughly?
Recently.
I think we-
yeah, it was just a couple years
Just the
ago.
last couple
It
of
used to be
years.
5,000.
Yeah,
Years
that's
and
what,
years and years.
that's what I was wondering at one point, do we say $10,000 doesn't buy us as much as it used to, it should be 15?
Probably this year.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. We probably, do
Need
you want to make
that
a
as
motion to
record.
add some
Yeah.
amendment to a council meeting where we
I
update
guess I
that?
would. I'd like to.
And
make it-
November?
Let's not slow anything down. How many things we have for the solar thing? The next meeting, there's a ton of stuff. So
I guess my question is, does it make sense to keep doing this every couple of years, or should the original language have some sort of, adjustment for inflation?
Actually,
So it
it's-
auto
I
adjusts.
thought we had put
it's
it-
pretty well written up. I mean, it started out lower, moved it to 5 for several years, and it's been probably 8, maybe 7 years that went to 10,000. Or maybe not even that
I
much.
don't think it was that long because I'm
I
pretty sure I
think-
voted for it. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
we
it's
were.
only been about 4
think
years
so.
since, it was
I think it was
just
right when
before
it started.
COVID.
Okay, so we need number 3. Do we have our third priority then? Because we talked about not doing anything to the roof till the structural people,
Mhm.
not doing anything to the elevator shaft until the structural people.
I
Or
mean,
does that
I
need to
guess,
be done now
you know-
because we've got emergency?
So in this, yeah, so that's what I think staff here needs direction on. Do we move forward with the GNW identifying to fix the leak, or like do we move forward with a RFP, which we're gonna have to do to fill the leaks like MJS, or forget the name of it. That quoted us at 85,000 to.
GNW.
Yeah, no,
Oh, I'm sorry,
it was
AJS.
KJS remodeling. Do we engage with them or move forward with that? Should we do the structural analysis, the geotechnical analysis, whatever engineer analysis before moving forward with actual repairs to the leak? Or just even identifying the issue with the leak? Do we need both? Is the question, I would say.
I would think structurally you'd want to do that before you start doing windows.
you want to know the cost of the leak.
Yeah, I mean, I think 85,000, you wait, 8,500 falls in, use your,
Yeah.
I mean, that's your discretion.
And there was a whole lot of stuff in that 85,000 that wasn't included. Like the work. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the consulting price, but then any of the materials and all the other stuff was not included in that either.
Yeah, that was a pretty pricey.
So do we have a consensus then about the elevator shaft and the light? Just check it for safety and go from there, or wanted to get estimates on what it would take to take the top of it off?
I would do that at the same time. I mean, if the structural engineer comes back and says the roof needs to be redesigned in certain areas, it has to be sloped differently, nothing will change until this part of the building's ripped off. That architect that's gonna design that can do the clock tower at the same time, I would think.
I think you need
Rolled
to
into one
repair, I
day.
think you need to just make sure that the clock tower is not going to hurt somebody.
Yes.
Hurt someone.
Yeah.
But we don't have a piece of glass.
It did
falling
look
out.
like those windows were separated.
They were.
You could look up at an angle, you could see the difference in the light inside there, so. Wind might not be a good thing.
Very, very large windows.
A heavy wind will blow them on there.
So you don't need a motion to check that out. You're good with that.
No, I think we're good. Two motions.
So we have the two motions. What else?
Move forward with housekeeping, which was fine. That's kind of what we were looking at there. And then bring on the necessary engineers to conduct analysis of the structural and geotechnical issues with this building. And report those findings back.
So now I have a kind of an accounting question. How difficult would it be? I know that people hate when you ask it that way. How difficult would it be to go back and look at what we consider true maintenance? I mean, if you just look at our audited report, break out the maintenance under admin as to what's in there that's truly maintenance on this building.
Right.
And just see, I mean, like I said, that was just such a big,
Yeah.
I had seen it last year, how it dropped.
Figure for
Uh,
ongoing maintenance.
So I did a very cursory internet search on this, so it's not like the gospel or anything, but basically for a commercial building, it's recommending a minimum 1 to 3% of the value of the building per year for ongoing building maintenance. There's absolutely no way we've spent that for 10 years, nowhere close to it. So I think we need to go back and see what we have been spending things on for actual building maintenance, not probably like maintenance on the computer
Not
system.
capital
things like
maintenance,
that.
yeah, different.
We also then need to get somehow a rough valuation of what the building is so that we can then set it, and which makes sense to me, the older a building gets, the larger amount of money you start putting towards it.
Mhm.
You can use the same formula too for maintenance on the square footage. So if it's 19,000 square foot,
Mhm.
you know, because you're gonna pay that in common area maintenance if you're leasing a building. So
Exactly.
that would all work in, but I think that'd give us something. We don't have to put in a budget, but it would be a great thing to have for your budget preparation. Mr. Vunich.
I made a mistake. The building's 26,000 square feet.
I thought it was-
I thought it was over 20, but
Yeah.
maybe we weren't counting the
Check
police.
the
So
ordinance. there.
Tom, did you get what I'm saying? That you guys probably need, I don't know who, I mean, we need to get someone, a bank, whatever, to just give us a generalized idea of what this building is currently worth. It's certainly hopefully more than what we paid to build it 10 years ago. Maybe not at the moment, but
Well,
it should be.
Mr. Boone, you might have somebody you can call and ask that question too.
And then I guess Joe or whoever's doing it, like, let's really go back and figure out how much have we been spending. So we can say, hey, we have spent this amount. This is what we should have been spending. So here's the difference. Because we didn't do that, there's these problems. Now there's a bigger difference. And then moving forward, we need to start not just fixing the things as we go, which we need to do, but like from a planning standpoint, we need to put this amount of money.
Yeah, we need to
into
put a
this thing.
slush fund together for.
Yeah.
Rainy
And
days.
it'd be good to look at that 2017 where we closed down the building fund. Because they went back through and Sue and Larry did a lot of work.
Oh, I know, they,
What happened then? Was that money gone?
Well, we're trying to clean it up because it had all these different projects. So they decided they would start breaking it all down as to where the money was spent, which contractors it was spent with, called them back in to do repairs for stuff that wasn't done. And then finally, I think it was December 2017, we voted to move the building budget, close it. It
But
was
that would have
done.
been, I mean, there was money in an account somewhere.
Well, all of the work that went to the costs, and that was the initial setup of the cost of the building. And then as we kept, every time we'd find something else that was put into that fund, and then the financing of how we were doing it, we dropped the interest rates on. So I mean, there's quite a bit of history there. But in 2017, it no longer was a budgeted fund we watched.
Got it.
It got rolled over, and by mistake, we should have watched it more.
Yeah.
Because if you look, everything in all of the write-ups, it never really talks about maintaining this beautiful city hall. It just kind of got buried in maintenance.
I'm not certain that that figure is gonna give you what Joe's talking about.
I know it's not there, but I think it's the only place they could have been put when they did the finance.
You know, the best thing I think to do would be to assess what the current value of the building is
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
assign a 1 to 3%.
But there were a lot of those costs that
It should be 3%.
contractors didn't want to pay that we ended up having to force them to go back and make it right.
Yeah.
And that's when a lot of those, the windows got done again. I mean, stuff that was never done properly. That Sue and Larry worked on that for months of trying to get it cleaned up.
But that also, I think, then works forward because that gives us an idea. If we were to sell the building at the end of the day, what, you know, an appropriate amount of maintenance cost and things like that would be, because everything's different, but I think most of the buildings here are triple net, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's the thing is if you get into a triple net, you're back to the same place again, but
Right.
you still want some expertise that,
Mhm.
but triple net, we're,
Paying for everything.
yeah,
anyways.
pay for everything anyway.
Oh.
And you know that we cut back a lot of these different, on multiple things, this wasn't just it, but back in 2021, when we were facing COVID and we didn't have exact idea of how that was gonna affect revenue. That's when we made some serious slashes to the budget across the board and significantly impacted this fund as well, so it was, you know, kind of not knowing the future in that case, because we didn't know how much we were gonna bring in, so that's what brought it down originally and kind of carried it forward from there.
But if I remember right, it wasn't nearly as impactful as anybody was,
No, it
Afraid of
wasn't,
it being-
revenue wise, we were fine, we didn't, it didn't
So,
hit us at all.
you know, the somewhat draconian measures we put in place
Mhm.
should not be there anymore.
Yes,
And
in my opinion.
I think through this process, this also allows us to better assess what our total cost of ownership is. So that if we do go out to our residents and ask for some type of a tax issue that would pay for ongoing road and street maintenance, ongoing parks maintenance. Does it need to be ongoing city hall maintenance or city facilities maintenance where we have a variety of the pond school, the other park piece that we just purchased,
All of that should be in facilities. It should,
the parking garage, yes.
Exactly. 2026, that will be transferred over, but the SID will be taking on a nice flow of that. We have about 150,000 from the SID attributed to that garage.
So we need to be starting to identify for our residents. Here's the facilities that we as a city have implemented for your use and pleasure, but they will have a cost of ongoing maintenance. And so we will be putting forward this particular tax that will be designed just for road maintenance, park maintenance, facilities maintenance. It's all it can be used for. Nobody can decide if they want to build a merry-go-round somewhere or add another park or.
okay, any other items that we want to ask them to put on their priority list, or do you have enough? This was great, though. Thank you for all the work involved in it, and really, we need to take some ownership in trying to get this stuff back up to where.
I appreciate how serious everyone is taking this. So thank you guys very much for coming today and being so active and
So
Council
will we
member.
determine our next meeting date based on what you
That's-
hear back from a structural?
that's what I
engineer?
put to be determined on there, I believe on the agenda. What I wanted to say was, once we have an understanding of, hey, we can do this and it's gonna take us 6, 10 weeks, whatever it is. That's when we should meet, when we get that report from the engineer, unless they come back with quotes that are above 10,000, then obviously we will have that, we'll cross that bridge if we need it, but I think we could maybe, do you think it's possible to get the structural engineer to come in at a number lower than 10,000? Or do you think that's different?
I would hope so, yeah.
I'm thinking so too, to give us kind of a checklist. So. But okay, yeah, so
And let us know.
Yeah.
And then we're assuming that you'll have an update that we can present to the council on our next council meeting.
next council meeting is on Monday, next Monday. We'll start reaching out to them. But we might not have someone,
Is it this next?
it's
Monday?
this next Monday.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I don't think he was saying that we have to have the quotes back. I think he was saying we need to have a
Oh,
report
yes.
on
It is what we're
what
doing,
occurred in this meeting and what the group voted on.
that we're working on it.
Mhm.
Lauren.
That could-
Yeah, but again, a list for this committee and or council of your needs as staff and as the police department. So not the list that needs to be fixed, but what you need from this space that makes it operational and what you need in the future, because it's about future planning. But it's also how we make the case, okay, they need this square footage to work for them for office space. They don't need the top of the clock tower, right? Because that's purely aesthetic, so. With that, a motion to close.
Oh, we did miss the not the adjournment. We skipped over miscellaneous.
Oh.
So we would be closing the 4 action piece here and move into miscellaneous.
Do we have anything for miscellaneous?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
So when we did the city administrator search, we had our normal admin and PW meeting. We had some extra meetings like this, but then there was every now and then there was like a Zoom, email situation when we just somebody's schedule was shifting or whatever, and we had to make a decision. We may want to talk to John if we have to ask John how to do that, but there may be situations with this where things are of a nature that it's like, what do we have to do to notify our citizens that it's happening? But can we send a thing around via email, which is obviously distributable if that's what needs to happen? To say, it's $11,000, it's not $10,000. What do we need to do? Who needs to approve that right now?
In that case, anything over 10,000 has to go in front of council either by resolution or ordinance. So if we have anytime this ad hoc committee at this time until it's disbanded, anytime there's 4 of you in the same place, technically there's a quorum and it should be a posted public meeting. So that's just.
I mean, we did a thing, not that we want to be careful with it. When we were doing it for the city administrator search, a lot of that was done under executive session. So I'm just wondering if we want to have a conversation with John about if that's necessary to do it here. It may not be, but it's better to have that information before we.
Ready to
You
go.
can post a
Can we
meeting
do
in
an
48
executive
hours, so
session and be able to make decisions?
you can post a meeting in 48 hours and still
Right.
be in fine shape.
Which is, I think, what we were doing, but just
Yeah.
whatever that process is, if that's what needs to happen.
If you think we need to have another meeting, that's I think we just need to post it. Would be good. Any other comments? We have a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
So any more miscellaneous? You're all good.
Just include some pictures in the next meeting agenda of everything we saw. It's good for the public to see it.
Do we have a second? Mr. Farmer, second. Any questions? All good? All in favor of finishing our meeting? Say aye. Everybody
Thank
grab a
you.
piece of wall on your way out. Shouldn't get window.